It was definitely the highlight of my week.
I think it was the highlight of all of our weeks.
Melissa's right.
Well, Cliff and I were talking about this beforehand, and Sam to me was almost unrecognizable without her own hair. Like with the new hair, it was just a whole new person.
I think I need to grow bangs out.
I think we all need some bangs after that, except Corey had no bangs. Corey has that big like swoop backwards. And I think Jeff's
Yeah.
gonna need, not here tonight, but he's gonna need to.
I would love
Grow.
to have bangs myself, you know, but
Cliff, don't say those words because I can make it happen.
that's right. You could.
Don't,
You could.
I'll put you in there. Don't tempt
Can
me.
you definitely do the 80s bangs if you're gonna do, bangs for Cliff?
There you go.
I think if I play my cards right, I probably could get hair and makeup done before the event and come looking just like that at the party. There's a decent possibility that's going to happen.
I want to come and do hair and makeup too.
Perfect. Oh, Corey is here. We do have Corey.
I'm here.
Corey knew about it.
We have
before,
40
like,
inches.
Wait, did somebody just say 40 inches?
40?
Great. Yes, we have 40 inches of snow.
Holy moly.
Where are you?
Genesee.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah.
Oh. Okay, well, Michael just texted me again to give you guys
Wow.
another update. The rescue truck, he had to get a rescue truck to come get them in their neighborhood, also got stuck.
John, I spent about 10 hours on I-70 last night just up the road from your house.
Goodness.
Chuck, if you were just up the road, then you could have stopped at my house because I'm in Evergreen, which is just up the road. You could have seen, you could have stayed with me.
It was one of those things where it was like, should we see if there's a hotel here? Should we see if there's a hotel here? Nah, it's open. We're fine. And everything closed.
Okay, my screen's
We've probably got less than 4 feet here in Evergreen.
my goodness. We don't have that much here.
We have about 3 feet here.
And you're in Larkspur, Kathy?
Yes. Palmer Divide always hit there.
All right, I'm pulling up my notes. It is time. Because Cliff and I both like to go to bed on time.
Yeah. The older you get, the more important that is.
I know, right? All right, so I get to be in charge tonight. I have just a couple of announcements. First of all, I wanted to thank everybody who came and worked at and attended the Chris Knight event this past weekend. If you were there, it was an awesome time. There was a ton of learning going on. There was a ton of inspiration floating around most of the weekend. Chris was highly impressed with our group and he spoke really highly of us after he left. So thank you all for coming to that. We have a couple more events coming up. In April, we have a meeting and a workshop in various aspects of real estate photography with Suzanne Lutig. Hopefully I'm saying that right, from Nebraska. We're also in May going to be joining our friends at PPGCS in Colorado Springs. They are presenting Unmesh Dinda from YouTube. If you don't know him, he's YouTube famous and quite amazing with all things Photoshop, and he's going to be here live for 2 days. Presenting on Photoshop A to Z, and that is in Colorado Springs. In May, we are also going to be having a headshot swap, which I cannot say, event. The details are not out quite yet, but they will be up very soon, and so we're pretty excited to get some refreshed headshots for everybody. And then in June, we only have 6 seats left for the Flowing Silks and Skirts in Colorado Springs with Maria Randolph, who's also here tonight. Thank you, Maria. If you want to book that, space is extremely limited. We have to keep the dancers rested, and so we cannot have too many people there. So if you do want to go to that event, make sure you book it sooner than later because there are only 6 seats left. There's a whole bunch of other events on our website. We do have the full list up. I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but that kind of gets us through the first half of the year. And beyond that, we are going to be here tonight with Cliff Lawson. Following Chris Knight and the dramatic portrait, Cliff is going to be going through some dramatic post-production, which Sam and I were talking about it, and Sam was like, Cliff is the perfect person to follow this event. So thank you, Sam, for that, because I think you are right on, and Cliff is the perfect person to follow this. I can't wait for tonight. It's all you, Cliff. That's all I got.
Okay. Okay, for those of you that may have just joined, I'm just making a suggestion that you set your view to speaker view. I'm just going to show a few things, but in that little tiny box, you won't be able to see them. So that's up to you. Whatever you'd like to do. So yeah, thank you, Sam Hardcastle, for suggesting this. I appreciate it. This weekend when Chris Knight was here, he showed a bunch of books and talked about people that were his inspirations. And I got a couple here too that you might check out. One is Gregory Heisler. Some really great portraits. A lot of it's environmental stuff that I don't do, but he's just a wonderful portrait photographer. Dan Winter, in fact, Chris Knight showed this picture also. He's done some really amazing work that's really inspirational. When I started doing this veteran project, in fact, it was Jeff Johnson that said, have you seen the work from Glenn Dewis from the UK? I said, no. And he said, well, you should check him out. And so I did. And Glenn is doing a veteran portrait project, but it's all World War II veterans. And he has some kind of unique ways to do the retouching. And so I bought his book, and it's called How to Photograph Like a Thief. And some of the stuff I'm going to teach you tonight came from this book. It's how I do the eyes, how I add some texture to the skin. So I took some of his techniques and I've kind of modified them for my purpose, but this has a lot of other stuff in it. If you're a portrait photographer, there's some really cool Photoshop techniques in this. So how to photograph like a thief. It says, using imitation and inspiration to create great images. So I would highly suggest that. Okay, so let me just show you here. These are the things that we're going to talk about here tonight. So I'll talk a little bit about my lighting setup. It's pretty formulaic, actually. When I started this, I kind of experimented with a couple different ways to do it, but after a few sessions, it kind of settled down to what I have now. So it's not creative at all. It's pretty much same setup every time. But that's partly because I'm looking for a very I want the look to be similar across the project. So I'm not doing a lot of creative lighting stuff. We'll talk very, very briefly about why and how I shoot tethered, and why, if you do shoot tethered, you should use Capture One. It is the bomb if you're going to shoot tethered. The bulk of the evening will be about processing for dimension. That's really what you're here for. So how do you get that look that people that see these saying, "Wow, these look almost three-dimensional," and that's the way they are processed. They kind of get that look. We're going to look at this using LUTs, lookup table, for color grading. This was something that I learned out of the Glenn Dewis book, and it's a creative process. I'd seen those LUTs before in Photoshop, in the adjustment layers, and I clicked on it, and something came up, and I thought, why would you ever use this crap? Well, I learned how you do use that crap. And I'll show you. It's very, very cool. And then I'll show you how to build a background, or how I do it anyway. I shoot against a background, of course, but it's just really it's just a vehicle to allow me to put my own backgrounds in for these veterans. And as Chris Knight mentioned over the weekend, backgrounds can be kind of neutral, where they're just colors or textures, or the term he used was narrative, and where the background has some connection to the subject. So I'll show you how I do both of those. Okay. So let's see. I got my notes here to make sure I don't miss anything. Okay. Oh, by the way, if you have a question while we're going through, just unmute yourself and say, "Hey, Cliff, I got a question." So don't wait till the end and then you'll forget what it is, or it's best if it's in the context of whatever I'm doing. So don't hesitate to ask questions whenever
Cliff,
you're ready.
Can you pull up
Yeah.
that book that you just showed? It was, I think, Chris Hustler. You said environmental portraits.
The
Black and white cover.
Greg Heisler.
Greg Heisler. There we go. There's why I can't find him.
Yeah, Gregory Heisler. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Excellent book. Okay, so let me share my screen here, and we'll get started with the meat of the program here. Okay. So let me do that this way. Okay, so let me just show you some of the lighting setups. This picture was taken at the Lone Tree Camera Club last year. I did a program for them, and they had a couple of guys come in that were veterans. And the reason I'm showing you this is the first thing I do is I talk to these guys. I shouldn't say guys, it's women also. A lot of them are a little leery of the whole process. You know, they're not sure what to expect. So the first 5, maybe even 10 minutes, I don't even touch the camera. We just talk about our various backgrounds, our shared experiences, and get them relaxed. So by the time I get to the camera, you know, they're ready to talk and they're ready to take part in the process. And it's I've heard some of the most marvelous stories over the years. Really just fantastic. Let's see, here's another one there. Here you can see the setup. I got this kicker light. Here I was using a soft lighter. And one of the things I've learned over the years is, you know, I've used a soft lighter. I use you'll see some pictures here of a big octa that I use. I use a 3x4 rectangular softbox. And what I've learned is they all look the same. The only thing that changes a little bit is the catch lights, but it doesn't matter. Umbrellas, octas, rectangular, whatever you got works. So that's the main light. I use this for a hair light. If I were to skip any light at all, it would be the hair light. But I do, especially if someone did work on this guy, but people with dark hair, it does help to separate them from the background. Then I got this kicker light, and then I've got a light that I put on the background, which really helps with the separation. I use this background sometimes. This is in the studio I used to rent a couple of years ago. Unfortunately, they went out of business because it was a mixed deal. They went out of business because they didn't charge enough, but it made it so that I could use it. Every other studio in town's about $100 an hour, and I really can't afford it. So I do have some places now that let me shoot for free. Channel 9 did a story on me in August of 2018. This is what I had set up there. Here's the octa, hair light, rim light, and here's the light that I put on the background. This was up in Vail. The Vail VFW had me come up there and get a bunch of pictures of their veterans. This is from Westcott. This is really a handy backdrop. It's it comes with a cloth backdrop, but this particular backdrop itself, it's the Glenn Dewis, the guy from UK backdrop. It's got a very natural vignette, and I do use it. So you can see I shoot tethered, always hooked up with the tether tools. And here again, the octa, rim light, reflector, hair light, and I guess I haven't set the background light up yet here and here. Okay. So those are my lighting setups. Real briefly on Capture One here. Didn't mean to bring her up. Let me bring up one of my veterans here. Now, this is something you can do with one of the reasons I use Capture One. You see this green mask? You can set this while you're shooting. You can set that. So all you have to do is look over there, and the stuff that's in focus has this green. You can actually put several different colors in it, but you can look at the monitor can be several feet away. All you have to do is look over there and you can say, yep, this is all in focus. It's dynamite. When you're getting set up, you can set it to composition mode. So you can be taking pictures in the composition mode. It has these little X's up there. It's not recording those pictures. When you go to the next one, this one goes away. So you're not sending anything to the computer. But the main thing is this focus mask. And it's got catalog features, which is one of the other reasons I use it. I've got the keywords, so I can pull up veterans, Army, veterans, Navy. I can pull up high school seniors, blondes, brunettes, all the keywords. So if you're going to shoot tethered, I just can't recommend Capture One highly enough. It is so much better than Lightroom, as Chris Knight mentioned. Okay. So when I have taught lighting classes in the past, I'll ask people, what is it that defines soft light? And it's like pulling teeth to get people to figure that out. Often it comes up, well, it's very contrasty. Nope. You can have hard light and high contrast. You can have hard light and low contrast, but the light is still hard. Look at this shadow right here. Low contrast, high contrast. There is virtually no transition at all. It goes from shadow to highlight. Look at that line right there, shadow to highlight. When we go back to low contrast, look at the difference. But they're both hard light. Hard contrast high, low. We go to soft light. Now we have a much longer transition. That line is no longer sharp, but this is high contrast because we've got a big difference between the shadow and the highlights. Shadow and the highlights. But we can go low contrast. Soft light, still exactly the same shadow, but there's not as much difference between the highlights and the shadows. Highlights and the shadows. Highlights, shadow. Oop. Highlights and shadow. So you can have both. There's no such thing as soft light soft light just being high contrast. Any questions on that? Okay. So let me go here next. There are 5 planes of the face. And we're talking about how we always sculpt the face for that 3-dimensional look. There are 5 planes of the face that you want to advance. There are the areas next to them that you want to recede. Oops, let me get rid of that. Those 5 planes of the face are center of the forehead, the bridge of the nose, the tops of the cheekbones are sometimes called the apples of the cheeks, and the chin. Areas beside them are in yellow here, those we want to darken. Darken the side of the nose, both sides of the nose. Darken under the apples, we darken that. Brighten this, and then darken the area beside it. And that gives us that 3-dimensional look. So we have And I watched one of my doing a model shoot once. I watched the young lady putting the makeup on, and that is exactly what she did. She darkened the sides of her nose. She darkened under the cheeks. She brightened the tops of the cheekbones. And this is exactly what we do with the retouching. Okay. So let's just go through a few samples here to show you what we're talking about. Okay, this is soft light, high contrast. Most of these are very dark over here. Lighten the apples of the cheeks. Did a lighten on. I did use a little reflector on this to bump up under the hat. This is definitely soft light, but high contrast. A little less contrast on this one. This we brought in some. And by the way, some of the stuff I'm showing you, I would encourage you to look out veterans in your area. Feel free to steal my project. This isn't just me. You know, these guys are getting older. They don't last forever, and their family would love a picture like this. So get some inspiration from what I'm doing, and I'd love to have other people do the same things. I'm doing it for free, so it's not like I'm giving away any business. But if I hear you're charging for it, I'm going to come after you. Okay. Soft light again, but high contrast. This is a little harder light on this one. This one he brought in. He said, "Can I get a picture with my wife?" His wife was a Navy captain. She had passed away, and he wanted a picture with her. Soft light. Not always high contrast. This one, I don't know why, but just looking at his face, I didn't make it a real high contrast picture. I think it worked out fine. High contrast, very soft light. We're going to take this picture, by the way, and we're going to retouch it again tonight. We'll see if I can replicate that. Here's the black and white version, which I really like. Women get a little easier touch. For the most part, not so high contrast. I'll move that light a little bit farther around to the front, so it's not quite as far off to the side, and kind of even out the lighting. To retouch the women the way I retouch the men would be really, really insulting. You guys know this guy. Darken, 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 lighten, 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 darken the sides. Oh, this one, this was cool. This was up in Loveland. Two of these guys, this was his 100th birthday. And we put them together here. This was the original shot. Obviously, I didn't have a background big enough. So I just extracted them all, and we made this. And the family, I did do portraits of all four of the gentlemen, but then I sent the families this picture also. It was his 100th birthday. He was 100 a couple of weeks later, and the other two were 99. Again, the women, not quite as severe. Very high contrast. I just did this guy in January. Here's a case with this woman. I think it worked. It's pretty high contrast on her, and she loved it. So I guess it was okay. But I don't usually use.
I really like her wrinkles in this one. I'm just saying, per our conversation earlier.
Yeah, and you know, when I did the class at Shannon's studio. Let me go back here. Was almost two and a half years ago. It was actually. Somebody asked if anybody ever didn't like their pictures, and I don't have her here, but there was one woman that she saw, and she didn't like the pictures. She said, "I guess I'm too vain. I look kind of old." But she's a great looking lady, and she just didn't like the pictures. What I should do now is wait about 10 years and go back to her and say, "What do you think now?" It'd be a big difference. But she didn't like him. It's too bad. This was the gentleman that was 100 that day. And again, I didn't photograph him with really high contrast. And this guy, he was our opening keynote speaker last fall. And look, this is definitely soft light. Look how long that transition is across there from here and here. That shadow takes all that space to fall away, all that space to fall away. So that's a nice soft light picture. Okay. Okay. Back when I taught that class, I mentioned using the clone stamp and changing the mode to darken and lighten. Now I want to show you a little bit about the theory before we start using it. If we take the clone stamp, and this thing, Adobe keeps wanting to show up. There we go. Okay. If we take our clone stamp and set it to darken, I have tool presets here. Let me set it to about 90% though. And we have it set now to darken. It is only going to darken pixels that are lighter than where you sample from. So if I sample from here, it will darken this area over here. But if I sample from here and go over here, nothing happens because these pixels are darker than these. If we set this to lighten, and again, I'll run that up to about 90%. And I sample from here, and I come over here to lighter pixel, nothing happens over here. But if I sample from here and come over here, it will lighten them. Why? Because these pixels are darker than where I sampled from. So we can use this to get rid of these little halos we get sometimes. Now, I made this obviously very much exaggerated. But as I mentioned at my class before, if this were the sky and this were a mountain, and you get these halos around sometimes, and they come from sharpening. A lot of the things we do with retouching increases contrast, and you can get little halos. And here's how you can get rid of these. And you can find them in portraiture when the rim light maybe is a little bit too bright around the edge there. And here's how we'll do it. We will choose darken. And we'll set that at about 80% for the demonstration here. So this is one tone, but it is darker than this halo. But it's lighter than his uniform. So we can sample here, and we can come down. Oops, wait a minute. Darken it. Let's make it darken at about 70%, something like that. Yeah. Come down here, and we can just get rid of that halo. And it does not touch the uniform at all. If we did it this way, and you hit darken here, and we try to come up, you will start getting into the background. So any questions on that? That's how we're going to use this tonight, to lighten and darken. Okay. All right. I remember, I think it was Corey said, learning that was the best thing she learned at the class. You can use that all the time. Okay.
It totally changed my world. You made me so happy that day.
Good. Glad to hear it. Okay. So let's get to work. I think what we'll do, we'll use this guy. Here is the raw picture, and this is what I made from it. Now, one of the things that drives me crazy when I take a class is an instructor who they start to do something that takes, maybe if you're using it for a client, it takes 10 minutes to do. And during the instruction, they'll take all 10 minutes to do that. I am not going to insult you like that. Once I show you how we do something, let's say it's like removing the lint from the guy's coat. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes, which I might have to do in reality, to remove the lint. We're not going to do that. So let's see how close I can get to this guy to make it look like this. All right. Okay. So about the first thing I do, let me make this a little bit bigger here, is I will crop it. And I'm generally giving these guys 11 by 14s or 8 by 10s. So, I'm sorry, before I get there, let's do what I do with the raw processor. I learned this part from Jeff Johnson. Here's the original. First thing I do is come in and I reduce the highlights and increase the shadows. And the reason, and you do it by eye, because sometimes when you reduce this, you make it too dark. But you got to do it by eyeball. You want to come down and you can see here. This is pretty bright in here. There's still detail there, but it's pretty bright. And we take that highlight slider, we can come down and there's plenty of detail now. And let's see, when the shadow's down in here, this is not too bad, but we do lose some detail up in his cap. So we'll bring that up a little bit. Yeah, that's good. If some guys have, especially in the summer, they really get ruddy red skin. And I tried to find one tonight and I really couldn't find anybody that, because I get rid of a lot of the raw files when I'm done. But if you do find a guy with really ruddy skin, the best way to take care of that I found is to come down here to the color mixer. And if you can take that red slider in the hue, just a touch to the right, and the oranges just a little bit. You do it by eye, but don't do much. Move that to the right just a little, and then come down to the saturation slider and come to the left just a touch, and you can kind of neutralize that ruddy complexion. I think he's about okay. We're good. We're good there. And that is about all I ever need to do in the raw converter. Sometimes I'll come up with a white balance and warm it up, cool it down just a little bit. We'll warm him up just a touch there. There we go. I don't worry about white balance. I set the camera to 5500 and take what I get. All right, let's open them up. Hang on a second. Okay. All right, so let's crop this to get about where we want here. Let's bring it up about there. Come down about here. Yeah, that's good. Wait, let's set this to 11 by 14 here. 11 by 14. There we go. Good. Okay. My regular workflow is to start with the eyes. So let's come in here with the eyes. And this is one of the things I learned from Glenn Dewis. I am going to select the circular elliptical marquee. We want to hold down both the Option and the Shift keys. You know, if you don't do that, the circle doesn't appear around where you started it. If you hold down the Option key, it originates where you started, where you clicked. And if you hold down the Shift key, it stays round. Okay, so let's put that right over his eye here. Hold down the shift and option. We'll click in the right about in the middle. We'll pull that out. And you want to leave, I want to make it a little bit bigger. You want to leave a little bit around the outside of that. That's natural that is a little bit darker. And it's okay that if it comes up over into the eyelids. We're then going to come over to our adjustment layers. Let's see here, let's pull those up here. Okay, adjustment layers. Oh, they're hiding over here behind, there we go. And we're going to choose selective color. Click on selective color and you're going to get another dialog box, which is this one. It will, the first time you pull it up, it's going to be in the reds. We don't want reds. Set it to neutrals. If you get really adventurous, you can actually affect the color of the eye with the color sliders, but be really careful with it. You can make it blue, like that. You know, you can, I don't do that because that's kind of risky. What we want to do is come down here to the blacks and we just want to pull that iris up just a little bit, not like this. Just that's the original. We want to come just so we get a little distinction between the iris and the edge. And you can see that it's overflowing up here. How do we fix that? Well, come over to the mask that it makes. Choose your brush tool, click B, make it black like the mask. Make it a hard brush and you can come in and just erase that like that. Okay, done. So that's that eye. Let's come back and do the other eye. Type M for the marquee, option, shift, click in the middle of the eye. Pull that out, leave a little around the edge. You can, if you're not accurate, you can use the arrow keys to move that around if you need to. Okay. We will come back, click on selective color. Again, come back to the blacks and we'll just brighten that up just a little bit right there. Come back to the mask, type D for brush and just get rid of this. That. And let's just get rid of that. Okay, okay. Make this a group, Command or Control G, select them both, Control G. We make it a group and that way we can turn that on and off. Too much, too low? I think it's a little too much. So we'll just use the opacity. I'm going to back that off just a little bit right there. Okay. Then let's come back to the background layer. And we want to take care of the whites. Now, don't ever whiten the entire orb of the white. Looking at this, you can see that it's darker up here. It's darker because that's the shadow of the eyelids. So we don't want to darken up in here. We just want to darken the lower, roughly the lower third, no more than that. So we're going to pick our brush tool. Oh, and by the way, you guys, I hope you know, on the Mac anyway, if you hold down the Control and Option keys and whatever their equivalents are on the Windows, you can change the size of the brush by going left and right, and you can change the density by going up and down. So we're going to take and make that about a third the size, make it a soft brush. I'm going to go here to the Dodge tool, set it to about 20%, which it is. And we'll just kind of, just a little bit along the bottom there. That's it. Okay. Always, when you're doing retouching, always back off and look at it at a normal size. That's a good way to catch something you've overdone if it's too much. That looks good to me. Okay. All right. I'm just going to flatten this. All right. Next thing I do. Pretty much. Oh, and I should also mention, I try to retouch these guys, well, anybody really, the way they think they look. So yes, I will take out like, moles and stuff like that. I mean, I won't take them out because that's part of them, but I will lighten them because they're still there. When you look at me, you don't see some of the wrinkles and some little spots on my, you kind of see my face. But when you fix that in a picture, oh God, there it is, man. So doesn't really apply on this gentleman. He doesn't have any moles or whatever. But if he did, I would just kind of I would leave them there, but they're not quite as prominent. What I will do is kind of lighten these little circles under the eyes. His aren't too bad. And this is where we use the clone stamp in lighten or darken. Now I've just set up these tool presets, and I have found that somewhere in the 30 to 35% range works good. I have it set at 33%. That way it takes multiple passes to get it. But if we're going to lighten this little line here, we'll sample here. We'll just kind of paint over that. It's still there, a little lighter. We'll sample here. Sample here. It's still there, but just not as much. That's too much. Okay. Sometimes little blemishes, we can use that like that, kind of clean those up just a little bit. He's got a little zit right there. We'll take care of that one. Okay. All right. That's about it. Oh, we got a little right here. We'll lighten that up. Okay. That's good. This right here is a lighting mistake. The light was far enough around that this should be dark to match the rest of this. So let's just come up here to darken. I'll select right down here, and we'll just kind of darken that a little bit. There, I like that better. There we go. Okay. So we got that. We got cleaned up his eyes. Good. Us older guys have some dry skin sometimes. So I'm just going to clean up some of that with the patch tool here. We'll just take that. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. Little spot there. I do carry a some moisturizer cream in my bag, but sometimes I forget to use it.
That's
Okay,
not
that's
age, Cliff. That's just Colorado air.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Okay. All right. He looks good. Now, let's do some dodging and burning. And this is what gets us that dimension to the face. Now, there are a ton of ways to dodge and burn. You could use the dodge and burn tool, but I wouldn't. That's probably the worst way to do it. One way, this is what I used to do, and I don't do it anymore, but you can take and let's see if I remember. I want to make a new layer. And you want to make the mode overlay, and you want to fill it with 50% gray, just like that. So you've got this layer over here, and then you use the brush, either the dark or the light brush, to retouch. And it does work. Let's try it here. There's the brush and it's dark. You want the opacity down around 5, 6, 7%, something like that. I think there on this layer, let's see. And let me bump it up to about 20% so we can see. Yeah, so you can do that. That darkens. And if you switch, type X, white, yeah, it definitely brightens. The problem with that is it's on one layer, and if you want to adjust your dodging or your burning separately, you can't. You're stuck with whatever you got. So I don't use that anymore. I use the method, and I think Chris Knight touched on it because I think this is the way he does it. I have an action set up here. Curves, dodge, and burn right there. Click on that. And what it does is it sets up a light layer, a dark layer with a black mask for each. So as you all know, if you have a black mask and you want black conceals, white reveals. So if we want to reveal this darker, we paint with a white brush. So here's, it's white and B, and I have found, I like to set mine about 6%. So I'm going to type 0.6. So we got 6% up here. Okay. Okay, let's start with the brush. All right, I'm on the burn layer mask with a 6% brush. We're going to darken under that area. Darken this, darken, pull that down, darken it up here, a little up there. The cap takes care of most of that for us. Yeah, pull this down around his chin. We want to get both sides of the nose. A little bit down here. And we can test that. Let's see what are we getting. Yeah. Okay. Dodge. We're going to do middle of the forehead, apples of the cheeks, ridge of the nose, and the chin, right? Those are our spots. So, come up here. Okay, here. And again, we can turn it on and off, make sure it's working. Yeah. Around the chin. I'm going to go over to the burn again. I'm going to darken this area down. There we go. It's like that. Okay. So if we select both, Command G to make a group, we can turn that whole thing on and off. Yeah, that's before, and that's after. We definitely see a little more dimension to his face. Looks good.
Excuse me, Cliff.
Yeah.
Those are not curve layers that you're using. What?
They are. Yes, they are. Yeah. Would you like me to show you how we did it? Maybe
Yeah.
we can take time for that. That only takes a second. Okay. All right, let me turn that off. So let's go back to normal here. So yes, I am going to take and I am going to make a new layer. Command J or Control J. I've got, wait a minute, I copied the wrong layer. I don't want that. Right there. Command J. I got a new layer right here. I'm going to pull up the curves, and I'll make this my burn layer. So I'm going to take this and I don't want that. And then, let me redo that for you. Okay, we're going to do. Okay, people, why am I getting that? Oh, I see. Never mind. So that's my burn layer.
Okay. All right. So you're not using a curves adjustment layer. You're using the curves layer that's up in
Yeah, it's just, I'm duplicating the layer
Okay.
and making it a curves. It's not a curves adjustment layer. I guess I could do it that way, but I don't. You know, that's one of the things I should have mentioned at the outset. When you ask, why don't you do it this way? And my answer is because I don't. I do it my way.
Okay.
So anyway, we take that and we add, pull down the option key, add a mask to it. That makes sense now?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for the question. We'll put that away and we'll go back to, we'll go back here. Okay. Okay. So that's the dodging and burning. And you can make that as severe or as light as you want. It's all done to taste, you know, whatever you think works for your subject. Now, this is something that I learned from Glenn Dewis also, and you got to be careful with this. I do use Topaz, some of the Topaz plugins. And we want to add a little bit of grit to these guys' skin. You got to be really careful, but it works. So I come up here to filter and I use Topaz Studio 2, as it is. Oh yes, I don't want to use the background layer. I want to use a hang on, folks. I want to cancel that. I want to do it on another layer. Okay. And you'll see why. Well, to add filter, and the only one we're going to use is precision contrast. I would never have figured this out myself. I got it from Glenn's book, precision contrast. And the only sliders we're going to use are micro and low. Sounds like a law firm, micro and low. And we're going to pull the micro up. Again, you're doing this by eyeball, but what I have found is somewhere in the 40 to 60 range on this number right here. Adds, you can see it in the background here, what we're doing when you pull it, but we want to be back in this area right in here. And on the low, generally somewhere about half of what you've done above. And it just adds a little bite, a little grit to the skin. And we are going to say accept. And we can turn that on and off here. You can see it. Shows up a lot in the background, but take a better look at his face here. It's subtle, but it's there. And again, because it's on a layer, if you think it's a little too much, just back it off with the opacity. But I think it'll work. I would never do this on the women's pictures. Okay. Depending on what they're wearing, sometimes that brings up too much detail in the clothing. It doesn't in this case, but just be careful. This background, this is, by the way, when I shot at a studio up in Northeast Denver that I was renting, and they had this very neutral gray background, which was perfect. Okay, so that's kind of the basic on that part. If they're wearing a leather jacket, I'll try to I may sharpen that layer just to bring out the detail in the leather. We'll let this one go as it is. What I'm going to do now is extract this. And boy, the new extract tool in Photoshop is the bomb, isn't it? So I'm just going to say select subject. Excellent job. Now I want to pick up the posing table too. So I'm going to pick up the lasso, hold down the shift key for the plus shift. So, and we're gonna, oops, I missed some there. Come out and there and here. Okay. So we have selected all that. It did a nice job of not selecting this area under his arm there. Looks good. Past experience has taught me if I come up here to the select again, and this works with these men. If you want to know how to select the flyaway hairs and stuff on women, there's another way to do this. But for the most part, this works just great for these guys. We don't have to worry about a lot of flyaway hairs. Hold down the shift key, come up to select and come down to select and mask. Holding on the shift key is important though. This is select and mask. And you can show it against black. You can show it against an overlay, whatever you want to show it again. But I will then come down to the radius and I'll bring that right about over into here. That just smooths things out. And for guys that have a little bit of hair up there, it picks up the hairs. I have, again, this has just been experimental. I'll feather it about 2 or 3 pixels at the most, smooth it 4 or 5. That's 6. That's fine. That's plenty. Okay. Output to selection. Say, okay, that's what I want. This is a selection. And then it keeps it as a selection out. Command J to put him on his own layer. So looks good. Okay. Now, here's what we were talking about, making your own backgrounds. I am going to go to my graphics folder. And backgrounds and overlays, I got that set up. Texture overlays. And I have one folder that says favorite textures. That's the ones I use. Now I have put these textures together over the years. In fact, I should show you something else while I'm here. I got these were free years ago, and I can't find them anymore. These were just free textures on the internet. I don't know, 100, more than 100. And I've used some of these and modified them and used them for my backgrounds. I'm going to go back to my favorites here. I have taken pictures of flags. These are pictures that I've taken. I made these in Photoshop, these flags. I got some clouds I use, different textures. So let's just pick something out for this guy. What do we do? Let's see here. How about, let's try this one. No, this one. Let's open that. These are multi-layer TIFF folders. Images rather. These are all the layers in this background. So you can alter this by turning layers on and off. Changes the color, it changes the textures, it changes everything. Okay. So we're going to select all of them, however. And we're going to hold down the shift key. Hold down the shift key so it centers it on the image and just drag it over here. Okay. There we go. Okay. We don't want this on top of him. We want him on top of it. So let's bring him to the top. So that's not bad, actually, that particular background. But I'll play around with that, and again, by turning layers on and off and see, oh, do I want to alter that at all? Yeah, maybe I like that a little bit more to the green than the brown. I'll stick with that. Let's see. No. Okay. I'll go with this. Just like that. Okay. Okay, so the
Cliff,
other, yes, go ahead.
did you say you made those backgrounds?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I've had people when I was showing these on the internet say, "Hey, where did you buy that background?" I said, "Well, I didn't.
From
I
the
made
Cliff
it."
store.
And in fact, sometimes I will alter them enough. If someone said, "Can you repeat that?" And no, I really can't because I'm not sure what I did to it. I kind of made it look for this guy, and that's his background. So no, I can't repeat it. Let me close that. You know, I mentioned this in the class I did down in the Springs, but it's the truth. You know where you can get cool textures is, does anybody remember what I told you? Okay. The tiles in bathrooms, hotel bathrooms. They have some very expensive and cool patterns on their tiles in bathrooms, and they make great textures. So there you go. Okay.
Thanks.
And then I use the Nick filters also. I will come down and I will go to color effects, Nick color effects. Oh yeah, and this is going to tell me there's an update rating. Yeah, I know, I'll get that. And I use the darken, light, and center, and I do this on 100% of the pictures, darken, light, and center. And I will come over and I will say, place center, click on that, click place center, and I'll generally place the center right about their chin, right about there. And I will go to the border luminosity and run it all the way to the left. Make it as dark as it'll go because we can adjust it. Okay. We're going to apply. And since we can make this a layer mask, I'll click on the layer mask down here. And since it's white, I can, if this is too dark, which it is, I'll come back and pick up my brush. Pick up my brush, set it to about 50%. And it's white, so I need a black brush, type D, to change D, and let's come down here, make a soft brush, and just kind of bring some of that back. Right there, like that. Maybe I took too much away from his hat. I'll fix that, like that. Okay. And that's the finished product. I mean, that's it.
It's amazing.
Pretty simple though, isn't it?
Well,
Cliff,
you make it look simple.
Cliff, would you walk through one more time how you got the vignette?
Oh, sure. The vignette is Nick Color Effects. Now you can make your own.
Oh, okay.
You can, but I'll tell you why the Nick Color Effects is so good. And it's because I have tried making vignettes myself, and you were always able to find out where they started and stopped. You could see the transition line.
Mhm.
I defy you to tell me on this one where it starts and stops. You can't. It's so good that it's not possible. I mean, it's that. So that's why I use it. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay. Now, let's see. Let me kill this. No, I don't want to do that. Okay. What time is it? It's only 8 o'clock. Okay. Here's what I can do. I'm going to close this one. Any questions on that so far? Anything there? Either you weren't paying attention or it was such a good class, you have no questions. Okay.
Sorry, Cliff, I got one.
All right.
Are you just, it doesn't look like you have much of a science in like picking out a complementary background to what they're wearing, right? Or,
Well, it's no science. It's no science. It's just eyeball. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, but are they, that gentleman was wearing green. Would you typically look for a green or something
Yeah.
along that line? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, generally with the guys that are in green, I do. Now, let me go here. Let's do this. Let's go back to the files for tonight. Here's the gentleman that I did at the class in the Colorado Springs. He's Air Force, and this is not Army green here. Here's the finishing picture with him. That's him. I just kind of went to a gray on that. I just thought it worked with his dark hair like that, But you're right. There's no science to it. It's just what Cliff likes, Greenish tones tend to be good against Caucasian skin tones, but you don't have to stick to that.
You
Let
do
me go
anything
back.
special? Do you do anything special for a beard? Facial hair?
No, sometimes I trim it, but that's all. Yeah, if it's sometimes with flyaway hairs, but that's about all. And some of the backgrounds, let's go to this guy again. Let's start from scratch here for just a second. And let's open it. And we'll forget all the retouching. We're just going to extract him. We'll just do the extraction. I'll show you something else. So we're going to select subject. And I want to add to that. That'll be good enough. Okay. And we'll put him on his own layer. And if I wanted to use a more a background that was more, as Chris Knight called it, narrative. In other words, something that was more than just a plain old background. There's a couple things that you can do. I'll show you. You can use a flag. Hold down the shift key, drag that puppy over there. Okay, the V to the move tool, and we'll position this flag behind him. Command T to get the handles here. Oops, not him. Pardon me. Okay, and we always want to go to, let's get rid of this. Change the blend mode to soft light or overlay, but soft light seems to work really well. Change that to, oops, not hard light, soft light. And then it's just a little bit too much in your face. So I kind of pull the opacity back a little. And I've got a texture that I put over the flag, and I call it flag grunge. That's what I call it. And let's rotate it so it's this way here. Hold down the shift key. And I can, well, that's, I want to do that. I'm going to put this over the flag. Change the blend mode to soft light. Drop it. And so now we have a background that is, you know, for veterans, it's a great background. This is for Air Force guys. Sometimes I have pictures of clouds. I might use the cloud picture. Put that behind them, change it to soft light. Just kind of blends in back there. Add the vignette. We put that on the wrong layer there. Pardon me, folks. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and flatten that. I'll get rid of the flag. So there you go. One more thing I'd like to show you. Is how to make a floor. Do we have time to do that?
We have
Somebody?
time. Yep.
Okay. All right. Let me show you something here. Any questions on the, I mean, it's really pretty straightforward stuff. Any questions at all on that basic processing? Okay.
Did you, do you have handy the process you described at the very beginning? I thought there was something about a lookup table. Did I miss?
Oh, geez. See, thank you. Dang. Yeah, we'll do that. My apologies. Thank you so much for paying attention. Let's pull him up again here. Okay, we can do this right on this file here. What I will do with my veterans, and I'm all on the very last step, either just before I put the vignette on, sometimes just after. I put this kind of a color grade on it, and I learned this from the Glenn Dewis book also. And it has to do with these color lookup tables and the adjustment layers. You know, and I had played with these, if I'd seen these color lookup, you click on the color lookup and you get this dialog box here. And it says load 3D LUT. All right, so I don't know. What does edgy amber look like? Well, what the hell are you going to do with that? That's really dumb. And that's the last thing I ever looked. That's the last time I ever looked at them. So I read Glenn Dewis's book, and he shows how you use these LUTs. You want to combine them. First of all, there's a bunch of things you can do with these, and you need to play with it. For one thing, you can come up here and you can start changing the blend modes on them. just like anything else. Look at what different blend modes do. Some of them are terrible. Some of them could be kind of cool. I don't know, whatever you want to do with it. That's not too bad. But the main thing is, you just pull the opacity way down on some of these. Pull them down into 10, 20%, and then you use another one. Well, how about if I go back here and try another one? Let me try what would what would teal orange look like? Well, it looks like that. Well, that's kind of ugly, but gee, if I pull the opacity down on that and I combine that with this one, that looks like that. This looks like, you start playing around and you begin to get a color look. Now, I'm not going to tell you exactly which ones I used because I don't want you to copy my pictures. You need to come up with what works for you. But here is what I use, and I have it labeled. I have an action that does it, and I have it called that amber green, which does use that amber and one of the green ones. I just click on that, and it puts these up, and you see what the difference. It adds a kind of a military-ish looking olive color to the image. Pull that out of the way there. And if it's too heavy, just make a group out of these. Command G, make a group, and then you can come up to the opacity and you can take it all away. I'll bring it back, or bring it. I usually end up bringing it back somewhere in the 60 to 70% range. But it just kind of adds this particular little color over this. But if you, fashion photography, portrait photography, you wanted to give it a kind of a wintry look, add some of the blues. You want to give it a fall look. They got these different warming colors you can use and play with them. So get in there and play with these LUTs. And I think, you'll probably come up with some, oh, that's really a cool look. And you can make it just what I did, make an action out of it. And you can apply it with one click and adjust it with opacity, or you could get in and adjust the various colors themselves. But those are the LUTs, and I think it's really cool. I mean, it gives my vet images a really distinct look. Does that answer your question on those?
It does. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. Thank you for mentioning that. I forgot to do that. What I want to show you is how to make a floor. Here is a picture I took of one of my guys here. In that case, I just use one of those folding backdrop. The only problem with those is folding it back up. What a pain. So we're going to make a floor for this guy as well as the background. And notice that on the floor here are the shadows from the light. And I wanted to make a full-length picture, but I wanted to put it in a different floor. And I forget where I learned how to do this, but here's the final result. I put in this marble floor with the guy. And notice that you can still see the shadow lines. You can see his shadow here. You can see the shadow of the stool. So here's how we do that. Okay. I have already gone through the tedious process of selecting him. I did that at home. So he's already been selected. The select subject will select the person just fine, but it'll miss the legs of the stool. So you got to go in there with the lasso tool or whatever and pick and get all that selected manually. And that's the only way to do it. So very quickly here, we're not gonna spend a lot of time on the background, but let's just put a background in front of Doug here. Go up here to the textures, and let's just grab, Yeah, here's. Let's just put this one behind him here. Put this one in there. Okay, but now we want to put a floor in. Well, first of all, I want to get rid of this leg of the and that's on that layer. So let me come up here. We'll just grab this. Close enough. So I'm going to put a floor in for him. We don't want that blank gray floor there. So I am going to go to this guy. This guy had a bunch of textures when he went overseas. So let's pick oh, maybe this. Let's try. Oh, maybe a brick floor. Let's try bricks. All right. We're going to put a brick floor in for this guy. So how wide is this? It's 16 inches. This is 22 inches. Let me just, well, that should work. We should be able to do that. So let's drag that over here. Put that in here. V. Let's move that brick floor down here. Okay. Okay. We've got that layer selected there. Command T. And we're going to come up to transform perspective. We'll drag that out so it's got some perspective to it. There we go, just like that. And then you come up here and you select soft light. Okay. We may have to darken that floor. We may have to use something darker. Let's see, will this work? Oh, I need to use a darker floor. Okay, no problem. Let's use this. And there's the floor. And you can pick out wood, lumber, other kind of patterns. Yeah, by darkening that background layer, that's how we got that to be a little darker down there. Yeah. Yeah. But that's how you can make a floor. Just add that, put the texture in it, add some perspective to it. Make sure you use the soft light because that's what allows you to keep all the shadows. All the shadows were in the original still stay there. So it's the shadow under his boot is still there. Looks very natural. That's it.
That's a great tip.
So,
Thank you.
So any questions, comments, personal insults, whatever you want. What do you got? Really?
Holy cow, Cliff, that was awesome. Made it look easy.
It is easy. It's very formulaic. I do the same thing every time. When I first started doing this, guys, it took me about 45, 50 minutes, close to an hour. But a lot of that was, I don't want to do it that way. And now it's down to maybe 20 minutes, 25 minutes tops per veteran to get the look. But a lot of it's done just by eyeball. You're looking at it. You've got that in your mind what you want. Pick yourself out some textures that you want, and you can see how using multiple textures by using the blend modes, the opacities. I mean, there's literally millions of textures if you have just a couple hundred textures that you can make. Change the color, change the saturation, change the hue, change the light. Pull up, Command U for you get the hue saturation sliders, and you can change if it's too brown, you can move it to the blue, you can move it to the green, make it lighter, make it darker. It's infinite what you can do with those backgrounds.
And that contrast adjustment in color effects was crazy. That made such a difference.
The which was that?
That micro adjustment for your contrast.
Oh yeah. It's very cool. And one of the things I mentioned this to Jessica earlier when we were talking about hard and hard light, high contrast, low contrast. That beautiful picture that Shannon took of Maria, if you guys haven't seen it, it's a gorgeous picture, but that's hard light. If you look at that nose shadow, it's a very hard light, and the picture is gorgeous. So I think there's a misapprehension that to make a nice portrait has to be soft light, and that's not true. I do that because these are old guys, and hard light it's not good for them or me. So we want to use soft light. But with Maria's complexion, that hard light, it's gorgeous. So you don't have to stick with soft light. If properly used, hard light is great.
You're too kind, Cliff. Thank you so much. But yeah, I actually make that comment to Shannon, how she took a picture with hard light and created the most beautiful, soft image of me. So I agree with you. And thank you for your kind words. And you blew my mind with all the stuff today. So I appreciate you so much. And lot? Are you kidding me? I didn't know it existed. So thank you.
Yeah, you guys can work up a look that is your look. That's the cool thing about the LUTs. And by the way, you can get online and download LUTs, other stuff. There's hundreds of them out there. The ones that we're using are the ones that come with Photoshop. But you can put something together that is your look. It's that nobody else has, because you put that together and it gives a color grade to an image that belongs to you, and it's not mine, it's not anybody else's, and it's yours. So yeah, play with those and come up with something, and that'd be great. And by the way, Maria, one of the reasons it works is with your complexion. That would not work on me, that lighting.
Oh, I see. Okay, but thank you. And
it helps. Yeah.
It was dark enough too, so I was happy about that.
Oh, okay. All right. If you say so. Yeah.
This was
Anything
fantastic.
else? Okay.
So since this was being recorded, is it going to be available to the membership to go back to?
Yeah, it's going to be $50
Yeah.
every time you watch it.
And half of it goes to me for turning to Zoom.
Yeah, check
Hey,
with Jessica.
This was my idea. I get a percentage too.
You should.
Well, Cliff's getting a smaller and smaller amount every time now. No, I'll get with Michael and see what's the best way to make sure that everybody has access to the recording. Because I know even myself, it would be easier to go back through while I'm physically on Photoshop.
Yeah,
There
was so much information. I just couldn't keep up to even try and take notes. It's like, no, I just need to pay attention. but it'd be
Well-
helpful to be able to go back through it.
When
Yeah,
Cliff was
yeah.
gracious to say we could record it, so we'll make sure that it's available. I just don't want to tell you where it's going to be available until I make sure that
Okay.
I know the answer to that.
Sure. I
Yeah.
understand.
But it's recorded, and that was the plan. I just need to figure out now what the plan is for where we're putting it.
Okay.
We're selling it on the website.
Yeah. There
This
is,
was
hang on just
amazing.
a
Does
second here.
anybody
Also,
else have any more questions for Cliff while we still have him?
Cliff, can I get the name of that book one more time, please?
I said it once. Geez, oh man. Yeah, it is. Which book do you mean?
The second one.
Okay. Oh, by the way, I put up on the screen there. There's my email on my phone. If you do watch it again, or even if you don't watch it again, if you have questions, I don't mind you sending me an email or calling me and asking me about what we did tonight. It's nice to be able to say, hey, what did you say about, and if I can answer it on the phone, I will. Otherwise, we can do it by email, but that's how you can get a hold of me right there. Don't, that's fine. So is it the Greg Heisler book? Is that the one you want?
No, the other one.
Mike, unless he was talking about
The
probably,
photograph
Dan Winter book?
Here you go.
The what?
Dan Winter.
Oh, Dan Winter.
No,
yeah.
it's the one in your hand.
The orange
This
one.
That one, yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
How to Photograph Like a Thief by Glenn Dewis, and Glenn is GLYN DEWIS. Glenn Dewis. And there's a lot of good tips in there about color outside what we did tonight. It's really a very interesting book on processing images. So yeah, I highly recommend. I highly recommend it. I don't know what it costs, but it wasn't. I think it was. Oh, here it is, $44.95. So that's not bad at all.
It's 25
one of
bucks on Amazon.
Ooh, Amazon for the win.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
bought both.
one more thing.
$70.
One more thing I wanted to mention. If there's anybody on here who is wanting to do portrait work and you don't have lights, I'm going to sell my Einsteins. I'm starting to get retired. I'm 80. I'll be 81 this summer. And I'm starting to pull back. I'm keeping some of my lights, but I'm going to sell all my Einsteins. There's 4 really cool Einsteins with an octabox, a strip light, a beauty dish with the grids, and triggers. So if anybody's interested in all you need to do is buy light stands. What, Deb?
Oh, just that, yeah, I think I might be interested.
You sold them.
Okay. All right. Get a hold of me. It'll be a good price because I don't want to give them away. But I'm not going to be using them. And
Yeah.
I've kind of switched to some battery stuff so I can use it outside too. But yeah, it's all in great working order. Yep, you'd love it. So let me
Okay.
know.
All right.
I'm trying to help send my grandkids to college, so I mean, it's be
Yeah,
helpful.
I've got some older, I've got some photogenic lights. But well, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, get a hold of me and we can talk it over. It's
Yeah.
whatever. Be glad to do it. Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. This was
I guess.
fantastic. Cliff.
Yeah,
This
thanks.
was
That was
really
great.
great. Thank you so much for
Mhm.
presenting this for us. I think this really pulled, especially those of us that were there this past weekend, that the post-production side, we did see some post-production, but I've actually tried to do a tribute to Cliff. I had a young senior come in full uniform and I was like, I'm going to process this like Cliff. And honestly, I did way so much work that I think I overworked the whole situation. Watching you tonight, I was like, oh, this is a different approach for sure, but you did it faster than I did by far. So thank you very much.
one thing I did not mention, because I don't always do it, when you're doing the eyes, don't hesitate to go in there and use the dodge tool on the catch lights, just to pull those catch lights up a little bit. Because often people say, oh man, the eyes just are great. And it has to do with that, brightening the iris a little bit, brightening just the bottoms of the whites, and sometimes just pulling a little bit more light out of the catch light. So yeah, I forgot to show you that, but that's easy to do.
Fantastic.
Okay, so like I said, get a
Well,
hold of
thank
me if
you,
you have
guys.
any questions. And I guess we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good. I will say for those that are still on, if you RSVP on the website to the meetings, the link does get sent out again in the email reminder that goes out. I think it's the day before. We did set it this time for an hour before, but if it's the day before, so make sure you RSVP for the meetings. And Maria now only has 5 seats left to her workshop. So if you want it, you better get on top of it now. But other than that, thank you guys so much for coming tonight. Tell Michael I did a good job.
Great job,
Yeah,
Cliff.
you did. Thanks.
Great
Yeah.
job.
You sure did. Yes, you did.
No, let's tell
Okay.
Michael that Cliff did a great job. He's the real superstar here.
Not bad for your
Thank you
first
guys
time.
so much.
Well, thank you
right,
guys for
stay
Thanks,
safe and
Cliff.
warm the next
It
couple
was-
days.
It was just really cool to see that many people on. So thanks for coming. I appreciate it. We'll see you.
Okay.